The Academy's main simulation chamber hummed with energy as the combat program initialized. General Koldar stood in the center of the arena, his massive frame casting long shadows under the bright lights. At 230 kilograms of muscle, bone, and natural armor, he looked like a living weapon designed by evolution itself. Across from him, Hyunwoo seemed almost fragile by comparison. The human cadet was barely half the general's height and less than a third his weight. To the hundreds of alien cadets and faculty watching from the observation galleries, this looked like an execution rather than a fair fight. Combat parameters, announced Seo Jun, the Academy's AI, his synthetic voice echoing through the chamber. No weapons. Hand-to-hand combat only. Safety protocols active. Serious injury will result in immediate simulation termination. Admiral Yeonsu watched from the command booth, her expression unreadable. Beside her, Colonel Sang-wook leaned forward with interest. The veteran Marine had seen humans fight before, but never in circumstances like these. Simulation beginning. In 10 seconds, Seo-jun announced. General Koldar cracked his knuckles, each pop echoing like a gunshot. His yellow eyes fixed on Hyunwoo with predatory satisfaction. This would be over quickly. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Begin. General Koldar charged forward with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. His clawed hands reached for Hyunwoo, intending to grab the smaller being and end this farce immediately. But Hyunwoo was not there. The human had moved aside at the last possible moment, flowing like water around the general's attack. As the Saurian's momentum carried him forward, Hyunwoo's elbow struck a nerve cluster behind the alien's knee. General Koldar stumbled but did not fall. He spun around, impressed despite himself by the human's speed. Quick reflexes, he admitted. But speed will not save you. He attacked again, this time more carefully, using his reach advantage to keep Hyunwoo at a distance while his claws swept through the air in deadly arcs. Hyunwoo dodged and weaved, never staying in one place for more than a heartbeat. But he was not just avoiding the attacks, he was studying them. His dark eyes tracked every movement, cataloging the general's patterns, timing, and weaknesses. In the observation gallery, Dr. Kyung-soo watched with growing fascination. Look at his neural activity, he whispered to So-young, pointing at the medical displays. His brain is processing combat data at an incredible rate. It is like watching a computer analyze an opponent in real time. General Koldar pressed his attack, growing frustrated as his strikes found only empty air. The human was too small, too fast, too unpredictable. But he had to tire eventually. No one could keep up that pace forever. That was when Hyunwoo shifted, from defense to offense. His first real attack was so unexpected that most of the watching aliens missed it entirely. As General Koldar swung a massive fist toward where the human had been, Hyunwoo suddenly reversed direction and drove his shoulder into the Saurian's solar plexus. The impact should not have done anything to a being of General Koldar's size and strength. But Hyunwoo had struck with perfect timing and placement, hitting the one spot where even Saurian armor was thin. The general gasped and staggered backward. How did he? Commander Yuki started to say. Pressure points, Admiral, Yeonsu said quietly from the command booth. Humans mapped the nervous systems of every species they encountered during the alliance negotiations. Medical knowledge, we called it. General Koldar recovered quickly, but now he was angry. This insect was making him look foolish in front of the entire academy. He roared and launched himself forward with all his strength and speed. Hyunwoo met him head-on. What followed was unlike anything the alien observers had ever seen. The human fought like something that had evolved specifically to kill creatures larger than itself. Every movement was precise, economical, and devastating. He used the general's strength against him, redirecting attacks and turning the Saurian's momentum into weapons. When General Koldar grabbed for him, Hyunwoo twisted the grip into a joint lock that sent pain shooting up the alien's arm. When the general tried to pin him against the wall, Hyunwoo used the surface to launch himself into a strike that targeted another nerve cluster. But more disturbing than his technique was his expression. Hyunwoo's face showed the cold, calculating focus of a natural predator. There was no anger, no hatred, no fear. There was only the systematic dismantling of an opponent who had made the mistake of threatening him. "This is impossible," breathed Professor Telmar from the observation gallery. "Look at the size difference, look at the strength differential." "Size does not matter," said a new voice from the gallery's entrance. Fleet Admiral Da-Un had arrived unannounced, the elderly woman moving with the quiet authority of someone who had commanded fleets in 3 different wars. She was small even, by human standards, but every alien in the gallery instinctively moved aside for her. "Admiral," Commander Yuki said in surprise, "we were not expecting—" "I came as soon as I heard about this demonstration," Fleet Admiral Da-Un replied, her eyes fixed on the combat below. "It has been a long time since we allowed the galaxy to see what humans are really capable of." In the arena, General Koldar was beginning to understand that he was not fighting a cadet. He was fighting something that his warrior instincts recognized as an apex predator. Every attack he made was anticipated, countered, and turned against him. The human moved like he could read minds, always knowing exactly where the next strike would come from. Worse, he was getting faster, not tired, not slowing down, but actually accelerating as the fight continued. His strikes were becoming more precise, his movements more efficient. It was as if combat itself was making him stronger. "Adrenaline," Dr. Kyung-soo murmured, studying his scanners. "But not normal adrenaline. His entire endocrine system is optimizing for combat performance. Heart rate steady, breathing controlled, pain receptors partially suppressed. He is becoming more dangerous the longer this continues." "General," Koldar launched one final desperate attack. He feinted left, then spun right with a backhand that would have shattered stone. For a moment it looked like he had finally caught the human off guard. But Hyunwoo had seen it coming. He ducked under the massive arm, drove his elbow into the general's kidney, and then executed a move that made every martial arts instructor in the galaxy take notes. Using the Saurian's own momentum and leverage, Hyunwoo lifted the 230-kilogram alien off his feet and slammed him to the ground with enough force to crack the simulation chamber's reinforced floor. General Koldar lay gasping, staring up at the ceiling while pain shot through his entire body. Above him, Hyunwoo stood perfectly balanced, not even breathing hard. The simulation chamber fell completely silent. "Combat terminated," Seo Jun announced unnecessarily. "Winner, Cadet Hyunwoo." Fleet Admiral Da-Un stepped forward to the observation gallery's main window, her voice carrying clearly to every being in the chamber. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored colleagues," she began. "What you have just witnessed is the difference between human cooperation and human capability." She gestured toward Hyunwoo, who was helping General Koldar to his feet with the same calm, courtesy he had shown before the fight. "For 5 years, humanity has served in support roles within the Galactic Alliance. We have built your ships, healed your sick, fed your colonies, and advised your tacticians. We have done this not because we lacked the ability to do otherwise, but because we chose to do otherwise." The Admiral's words echoed through the chamber as alien faculty and cadets tried to process what they had seen. "But choices," Fleet Admiral Da-Un continued, "are based on mutual respect. When that respect is absent, when our people are treated as inferior beings to be corrected with violence, then those choices must be reconsidered." Dr. Kyung-soo stepped forward, his research data pad in his hands. "Admiral, if I may, my studies have revealed something important about human physiology and psychology." He activated a holographic display showing human evolutionary history. Humans evolved on what we classify as a Class 12 death world. They are not a support species that learn to fight. They are apex predators that learn to cooperate. The images showed early humans working together to hunt creatures that dwarfed them, using intelligence, tools, and teamwork to overcome impossible odds. Their capacity for violence has not diminished, Dr. Kyung-soo continued. It has simply been redirected toward protective rather than predatory purposes. But when threatened, when their pack, their family is endangered, the original programming reasserts itself. In the arena below, General Koldar finally managed to stand with Hyunwoo's assistance. The human's expression showed no triumph, no gloating, only the same calm respect he had shown from the beginning. I do not understand," General Koldar said, his voice hoarse. How did you? You are stronger than me, Hyunwoo replied quietly. You are bigger, faster, and more experienced. But strength is not just about size, General. Sometimes it is about knowing when to use what you have, and when to help others use what they have. He extended his hand to the Saurian in a gesture of friendship. I do not want to be your enemy. I want to learn from you, and maybe teach you something in return. General Koldar stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Everything he had. The battle cruiser Incheon dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus Prime system, like an avenging angel wreathed in metal and starfire. Admiral Yeon-Su stood on the bridge, her small frame dwarfed by the massive command chair, but her presence filled the entire space. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from Nexus Prime Traffic Control, reported Commander Woo Jin. They are requesting our business and cargo manifest. Admiral Yeon-Su's smile was cold as winter on Earth's polar regions. Tell them we are delivering a package to General Koldar. Personal delivery. Behind her, Colonel Sang-wook and his Marine detachment checked their equipment one final time. The colonel was a mountain of a man, even by human standards, with scars that told stories of battles across the Outer Rim. His Marines were hand-picked veterans, every one of them carrying the kind of experience that came from fighting impossible odds and winning. Ma'am, Woo Jin said quietly, the Academy is requesting advance notice of our visit. Apparently they have protocols. Commander, Admiral Yeon-Su interrupted, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 20 years earning the right to ignore protocols when necessary. The only protocol I am interested in right now is the one that deals with assaulting human personnel under our protection. At Nexus Prime Academy, word of the approaching human warship spread faster than gossip in a small town. Alien cadets and faculty watched through windows as the massive vessel settled into orbit, its weapons arrays clearly visible even from the planet's surface. Hyunwoo stood with his squad mates on the Academy's main observation deck, watching the ship that had come in response to his beating. The cuts on his face had healed with surprising speed, leaving only faint lines that served as reminders of General Koldar's anger. That is a big ship, Taemin observed, pressed against the reinforced glass. Really big. Boram nodded, her four eyes tracking the cruiser's movement patterns. Human warships are smaller than Saurian or Centaurian vessels, but they are much more heavily armed for their size. That ship could probably fight 3 Saurian cruisers at once. Jin-A's crystalline body flickered with interest. The power readings I am detecting suggest their weapons are based on principles I do not recognize. Very efficient, very deadly. Hyunwoo said nothing, but something inside him stirred at the sight of the human vessel. It was like seeing a packmate arriving to defend the family. The feeling was primal, instinctive, and surprisingly strong. Admiral Yeon-Su's shuttle touched down in the Academy's main landing bay with military precision. She emerged with Colonel Sang-wook and a full honor guard, every human in dress uniform that somehow made them look more dangerous rather than more formal. The Academy's administration waited to greet them, led by Commander Yuki, and including General Koldar, who looked like he would rather be anywhere else in the galaxy. Admiral Yeon-Su, Commander Yuki began diplomatically. Welcome to Nexus Prime Academy. We were not expecting... Where is my cadet? The Admiral interrupted, her voice carrying across the landing bay like a blade. General Koldar stepped forward, his massive frame trying to loom over the small human woman. Admiral, this is an internal Academy matter. The cadet in question violated discipline protocols and was corrected accordingly. Admiral Yeon-Su looked up at him with the kind of expression that made veteran Marines nervous. Corrected? Is that what you call striking an unarmed student? The cadet was insubordinate, General Koldar growled. He questioned military doctrine and showed disrespect for authority. In Saurian culture, this is not Saurian space, Admiral Yeon-Su cut him off. This is neutral territory governed by Galactic Alliance protocols, and under those protocols, what you did was assault. The tension in the landing bay was thick enough to cut with a knife. Alien faculty and cadets who had gathered to watch the confrontation could feel the barely contained violence radiating from the human military personnel. Commander Yuki tried to intervene. "Perhaps we should discuss this in private." "No, Admiral," Yonsu said firmly. "This happened in public, so it will be resolved in public. I want to see the cadet who was attacked." Hyunwoo was summoned to the landing bay, where he found himself face to face with the highest-ranking human officer in the sector. Admiral Yeon-soo studied his face, noting the fading marks where General Koldar's claws had cut him. "Are you all right, son?" she asked, her voice gentling for the first time since her arrival. "Yes, ma'am," Hyunwoo replied. "I am fine." The admiral nodded, then turned back to General Koldar. "You struck this young man hard enough to draw blood because he disagreed with your tactical assessment?" "He showed disrespect," the general insisted. "In combat, such attitudes get people killed." "In combat," Admiral Yansu repeated slowly. "People like him keep people like you alive. Human tactical innovations have saved more alien lives in the past 5 years than any other single factor in galactic military history." She gestured to Colonel Sang-wook, who stepped forward with a datapad. "The Kepler defense, where human engineers designed the shield modifications that protected 16 different species during the Void Hunter attacks. The Altair Gambit, where human tactical advisors developed the strategy that ended the machine war with minimal casualties. The Vega Medical Protocol, where human doctors created the treatment that stopped the Blue Plague from wiping out 4 entire star systems. Each example hit like a physical blow. The assembled aliens knew these events, knew how many lives had been saved by human innovation and sacrifice. But you think, Admiral Yansu continued, that the appropriate response to such contributions is physical violence? General Koldar's scales rippled with frustration. "Your species joined this alliance as refugees. Earth was burning, your people were dying, and we gave you shelter out of charity." The landing bay fell completely silent. Even the ambient noise of the ventilation system seemed to fade as every being present held their breath. Admiral Yansu smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression many of the aliens had ever seen. "Charity," she repeated softly. "General, I think it is time you learned something about human history that your intelligence briefings apparently missed." She nodded to Colonel Sang-wook, who activated a holographic projector. Images filled the space above them, scenes from Earth during the machine war. "Earth was not burning when we joined the Alliance," Admiral Yansu said, her voice carrying to every corner of the bay. "Earth was winning." The images showed massive human fleets engaging machine forces in desperate battles. Cities protected by energy shields that held against impossible odds. Human soldiers fighting with a ferocity and determination that shocked even their enemies. "The machine war lasted 3 years on Earth," the Admiral continued. "We killed 97% of the machine forces sent against us. We were not refugees seeking charity. We were victors seeking allies." General Koldar stared at the images in shock. The official records had described Earth's entry into the Alliance very differently. "But we chose cooperation over conquest," Admiral Yansu said. "We chose to build rather than destroy, to heal rather than hurt. We chose to be the support species you needed us to be." She stepped closer to General Koldar, and despite the massive difference in their sizes, somehow she seemed to tower over him. "That was our choice, General. Not our limitation. Our choice." The holographic display changed, showing recent footage from the Academy's training exercises. Human cadets performing feats that should have been impossible for their species classification. "But choices can be changed," Admiral Yansu said quietly. "Especially when people forget that kindness is not the same thing as weakness." General Koldar found his voice. "You are threatening me." "No, General," the Admiral replied. "I am educating you. But if you would like a demonstration of the difference between human cooperation and human capabilities, I am happy to provide one." The challenge hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. Every alien in the landing bay understood what was being offered: single combat between the Saurian general and someone from the human delegation. "The Academy has combat simulators," Admiral Yansu continued. "Full immersion, complete safety protocols. You could face any opponent you choose under any conditions you prefer. General Koldar's pride warred with his survival instincts. To refuse would be to admit weakness in front of the entire academy. But something about the Admiral's confidence made his scales prickle with unease. "Who would be my opponent?" he asked. Admiral Yeonsu smiled again, and this time there was no mercy in it at all. Cadet Hyunwoo. The suggestion was met with gasps of shock from the assembled aliens. A human cadet, barely trained, against a Saurian general with decades of combat experience? It seemed like suicide. But Hyunwoo stepped forward, and there was something in his eyes that made even the alien faculty step back. "I accept," he said quietly. General Koldar looked down at the small human who had caused him so much trouble. Part of him knew this was a trap, but his warrior's pride would not let him back down from a challenge issued in front of so many witnesses. "Fine," he growled. "But when I crush him, this ends. No more complaints, no more investigations." Admiral Yeonsu nodded. "Agreed. But when he wins, you will publicly apologize to every human cadet in this academy, and you will recommend humans for reclassification as a combat." Dr. Kyung-soo had not slept in 3 days. The xenobiology lab was littered with data pads, genetic charts, and empty coffee cups as he tried to make sense of what was happening to the human cadets at Nexus Prime Academy. The Altarian scientist was known for his calm, methodical approach to research. His gray skin had a natural luminescence that dimmed when he was tired, and right now he was barely glowing at all. But what he had discovered in the past 72 hours had shaken him to his core. "Computer, display human evolutionary timeline, focusing on the last 2 million years," he commanded. A holographic projection filled the center of the lab, showing Earth as it had been during humanity's formative period. Dr. Kyung-soo studied the images of early humans hunting massive predators with nothing but primitive tools and teamwork. The emergency alert on his communicator interrupted his thoughts. "Dr. Kyung-soo to Medical Bay 7 immediately. We have another incident." He found So Young treating a crystalline cadet named Vex Carr, whose usually transparent body was clouded with stress patterns. The alien student was conscious but clearly shaken. "What happened?" Dr. Kyung-soo asked, running a scanner over the patient. "Sparring match with Cadet Minho," So Young replied. "Standard training exercise. But look at these readings." She handed him a data pad showing the crystalline's vital signs during the fight. The stress indicators were off the charts, levels that suggested the alien had been fighting for his life rather than participating in a training exercise. "Minho hit him twice," So Young continued. "Light contact, regulation sparring gear, but Vexcar's body went into full defensive mode, as if he was facing a natural predator." Dr. Kyung-soo frowned. Crystalline beings were not easily intimidated. Their species had evolved as apex predators on their homeworld. What could make one react with such primal fear? "Where is Cadet Minho now?" "Training room 4. He is working with the combat simulators." Dr. Kyung-soo made his way to the training room, expecting to find a typical human cadet practicing basic combat forms. What he found instead made him stop in the doorway. Minho moved through the holographic opponents like liquid death. His movements were efficient, precise, and utterly without mercy. The simulation was set to maximum difficulty, a level that most alien cadets could not handle. Minho was not just handling it, he was dominating it. But what disturbed Dr. Kyung-soo most was the expression on the human's face. Minho was smiling. Not the friendly smile of someone enjoying a game, but the cold smile of a predator that had cornered its prey. It was an expression that spoke of millions of years of evolutionary programming, of ancestors who had learned that the best way to survive was to be the most dangerous thing in the area. "Cadet Minho," Dr. Kyung-soo called out. The human turned, and for just a moment the doctor saw something inhuman flicker behind those dark eyes. Then Minho's normal personality returned, and he looked confused. "Oh, hello, doctor. Is everything all right? I need to run some tests," Dr. Kyung-soo said, "if you do not mind." The tests revealed what the doctor had begun to suspect. Minho's hormone levels were unlike anything in the medical literature. Adrenaline, Testosterone and several other biochemicals associated with aggression and enhanced performance were present in quantities that should have been toxic. But instead of poisoning him, they seemed to be optimizing his physical and mental capabilities. "How do you feel?" Dr. Kyung-soo asked as he reviewed the results. "Good," Minho replied. "Really good. Like I could run a marathon or solve complex math problems, both at the same time." That evening, Dr. Kyung-soo called an emergency meeting of the Academy's senior faculty, the conference room filled with beings from a dozen different species, all wanting to understand what was happening to their human students. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored colleagues," Dr. Kyung-soo began, activating a holographic display. "We have a problem. Or perhaps more accurately, we have underestimated what we are dealing with." The display showed a three-dimensional model of human DNA with certain sequences highlighted in red. "These are what human scientists call junk genes," he continued. "Genetic sequences that appear to serve no function in normal human physiology. For the past 5 years, since humanity joined the Galactic Alliance, we have observed these genes in their dormant state." General Koldar, who had been ordered to attend the meeting as part of his disciplinary hearing, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His strike against Hyunwoo had become the talk of the Academy, and not in a way that reflected well on him. "However," Dr. Kyung-soo continued, "recent events have triggered something. These genes are no longer dormant." The display changed, showing brain scans of human cadets taken over the past week. The areas associated with tactical thinking, threat assessment, and predatory behavior were lighting up like fireworks. "What you are seeing," Dr. Kyung-soo explained, "is the reactivation of genetic programming that has been suppressed for thousands of years. Since humans developed agriculture, civilization, and social cooperation, these instincts have been largely unnecessary. But they never went away." Professor Telmar, an elderly insect-like being who taught military history, raised one of her 4 arms. "Are you saying that humans have been holding back?" "Not consciously," Dr. Kyung-soo replied. "But yes, the humans we have known for the past 5 years represent their civilized state. What we are seeing now is closer to their natural state." He brought up another display, this one showing Earth's ecosystem during humanity's evolutionary period. The room fell silent as alien professors looked at images of massive predators, deadly weather, and hostile terrain. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world," Dr. Kyung-soo continued. "It is a planet where everything evolves to kill everything else. Most species that develop on such worlds either go extinct or become mindless killing machines. But humans did something unique." The display showed early humans working together to hunt creatures 10 times their size, using tools, tactics, and teamwork to overcome impossible odds. They became intelligent killers. They learned to turn their weaknesses into strengths, to use their opponent's power against them, and to work in groups with a level of coordination that other species have never achieved. General Koldar finally spoke, his voice defensive. "So what are you saying? That my actions somehow activated these instincts?" Dr. Kyung-soo turned to face the Saurian general. "Physical violence, especially unprovoked violence, appears to be one of the triggers. But it is not just your incident. The competitive environment of the Academy, the constant pressure to prove themselves among larger and stronger species, all of this has been building up." He pulled up video footage from the cafeteria incident where young Min had taken down 3 Saurian cadets. "Watch his movements," Dr. Kyung-soo said as the video played in slow motion. "Every strike targets a nerve cluster or pressure point. These are not techniques taught at the Academy. They are instinctive responses based on millions of years of evolution." The alien faculty watched in uncomfortable silence as the video showed young Min's systematic dismantling of his opponents. What had looked like a simple fight now revealed itself as something much more sophisticated, the awakening of genetic knowledge that had been passed down through countless generations. Their ancestors spent millions of years perfecting the art of killing things larger than themselves, Dr. Kyung-soo continued. Persistence hunting, pack tactics, tool use, psychological warfare. Humans invented modern combat long before they invented modern technology. Captain J1, who had been taking notes throughout the presentation, looked up with concern. "Doctor, are you saying that our cadets are becoming dangerous?" "I am saying they are remembering what they have always been," Dr. Kyung-soo replied. "The question is not whether they are dangerous, they always were. The question is what we do with that information." Commander Yuki leaned forward in her chair. "What do you recommend?" Dr. Kyung-soo was quiet for a moment, studying the data. One more time. "I recommend that we stop treating humans like a support species, because based on what I have seen, they never were." He brought up one final display, a comparison of human performance metrics before and after the recent changes. Every category showed dramatic improvement: reaction time, tactical thinking, physical endurance, pain tolerance, and problem-solving ability had all increased by factors that should have been impossible. "They are not getting stronger," he concluded. "They are accessing abilities they always had but never needed to use. General Koldar's attack did not create these capabilities. It simply reminded them that they exist." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Every alien professor and administrator was recalculating their understanding of the quiet, cooperative species they had welcomed into the academy 5 years ago. General Koldar stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is ridiculous. They are still small, still weak. I could crush any of them with my bare hands." Dr. Kyung-soo looked at him sadly. "General, with respect, that is exactly the kind of thinking that got us into this situation. You assumed that size and strength were the only measures that mattered." He activated one more display, showing historical footage from Earth's pre-contact period. Humans armed with primitive weapons taking down creatures that dwarf them. Size is not strength, General. The medical bay at Nexus Prime Academy was quiet in the late evening hours. Soft blue light from the healing lamps cast gentle shadows on the walls as So-young examined Hyunwoo's injuries with her delicate, translucent hands. The Etherian healer was one of the most skilled medical students at the academy. Her species had evolved on a world of pure energy, giving them a natural ability to sense the life force in other beings. Her touch was gentle as she ran a scanner over Hyunwoo's face. "The cuts are healing faster than they should," she said, her voice like soft chimes. "Much faster. And your bone structure?" She paused, checking her scanner readings again. "This cannot be right." "What do you mean?" Hyunwoo asked, sitting up on the medical table. The pain from General Koldar's strike had faded to a dull ache, and he felt strangely energized despite the day's events. So-young's large, luminous eyes met his. Her species rarely showed strong emotions, but he could see concern in her expression. "Human bone density is supposed to be 1.2 times that of baseline carbon-based life forms. Yours is reading at 1.8 and climbing." She moved the scanner to his head, checking his neural activity. The readings made her step back in surprise. "Your brain patterns during stress? I have never seen anything like this. Most species show decreased cognitive function under physical trauma, but your neural pathways are actually becoming more efficient." Hyunwoo frowned. "Is that bad?" "I do not know," So-young admitted. "I am going to send these readings to Dr. Kyung-soo, the xenobiology specialist. He has more experience with human physiology." Meanwhile, 3 systems away, Admiral Yeon-soo stood on the bridge of the battle cruiser Incheon, studying a datapad with growing anger. The Admiral was a small woman, barely reaching the shoulders of most alien officers, but her presence filled the command deck. Her aide, Commander Woo Jin, waited patiently as she reviewed the security footage from Nexus Prime Academy for the 3rd time. "How long ago did this happen?" she asked, not looking up from the pad. 6 hours, ma'am, Woo Jin replied. "The Academy administration is calling it a disciplinary incident and handling it internally." Admiral Yeon-soo finally looked up, and her expression made several nearby officers step back. "A Saurian general struck one of our cadets hard enough to draw blood in front of the entire academy, and they are calling it a disciplinary incident?" "Yes, ma'am." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, watching the stars through the bridge's main view screen. When she spoke again, her voice was deadly calm. "Change course for Nexus Prime, maximum speed. Ma'am, our orders are to patrol the outer rim, Our orders, Admiral Yansu interrupted, are to protect human interests in this sector. I would say our interests are being threatened. She handed the datapad back to Wu Jin. And send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we may need to have a conversation about how humans are being treated in mixed institutions. Back at the academy, Hyunwoo returned to his dormitory room to find Tai-min waiting for him with a worried expression. How are you feeling? His roommate asked. Good, Hyunwoo replied and was surprised to realize it was true. Actually, better than good. I feel awake. Over the next few days, strange things began happening throughout the academy. During combat training, Hyunwoo took hits that should have knocked him unconscious but kept fighting with increasing intensity. In tactical simulations, his problem-solving became more creative and ruthless. But it was not just Hyunwoo. Other, human cadets began showing similar changes. Hyejin, a quiet engineering student, solved a propulsion problem that had stumped professors for weeks. Minho, who had always struggled with physical training, suddenly began outperforming alien cadets twice his size in endurance tests. During a particularly intense combat exercise, Dong-hyun faced off against a Saurian cadet named Kortek. The alien was bigger, stronger, and had natural armor, but Dong-hyun fought like something possessed. He took punches that should have broken his ribs but kept coming forward with a grin on his face. When the exercise ended, Kortek was the one who had to be helped off the training mat. The Academy's AI monitoring system, operated by the synthetic being Seo-jun, began flagging unusual patterns in human behavior. The AI was designed to look like a tall, slender humanoid with glowing blue circuits visible beneath artificial skin. There have been 17 instances of anomalous performance by human cadets in the past 48 hours, Seo-jun reported to the Academy administration. Heart rates that should indicate severe distress instead correlate with peak performance. Hormone levels that suggest extreme aggression paired with tactical thinking that exceeds normal parameters. Commander Yuki listened to the report with growing concern. The elderly Centaurian had been at the Academy for over 20 years and had never seen anything like this. Are they using illegal enhancement drugs? She asked. Negative, Seo-jun replied. Full medical scans show no foreign substances. These changes appear to be unnatural. Dr. Kyung-soo received So-young's medical data and immediately began diving into human evolutionary history. What he found disturbed him more than he expected. Humans had evolved on what the galactic community classified as a Class 12 death world. Earth was a planet where literally everything tried to kill them. Predators, diseases, weather, even the plant life. Most species that evolved on such worlds either died out or became mindless killing machines. But humans had done something different. They had become smart killers. The doctor pulled up historical records from Earth's pre-space period. Humans had spent millions of years perfecting the art of hunting creatures much larger and stronger than themselves. They had developed persistence hunting, tracking prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. They had learned to work in groups, using tools and tactics to bring down massive beasts. Most disturbing of all, they had learned to fight their own species. Human history was filled with increasingly sophisticated forms of warfare. They had spent thousands of years finding better ways to kill each other, and each conflict had made them more dangerous. They are not getting stronger, Dr. Kyung-soo muttered to himself as he reviewed brain scans showing increased activity in the regions associated with tactical thinking and threat assessment. They are remembering how to be strong. The next morning brought a new incident. During breakfast in the Academy cafeteria, a group of Saurian cadets decided to test the humans who had been causing so much talk. 3 large aliens surrounded young Min, one of the quieter human cadets, at his table. The leader, a cadet named Graktor, was nearly twice young Min's height and outweighed him by at least 50 kilograms. We heard you humans think you are tough now, Graktor rumbled, placing a clawed hand on young Min's shoulder. Want to prove it? Young Min looked up at the alien with calm eyes. I am just trying to eat my breakfast. Answer the question, another Saurian demanded, squeezing young Min's shoulder hard enough to leave marks. The cafeteria had gone quiet. Hundreds of cadets from dozens of species watched to see what would happen. Many expected the human to back down or call for help. Instead, Young Min smiled. "Okay," he said quietly, setting down his fork. What happened next was so fast that most cadets missed it. Young Min's hand shot up, grabbing the Saurian's wrist and twisting with perfect leverage and technique. The alien's claws released his shoulder as pain shot up his arm. Before Graktor could react, Young Min was on his feet. He moved like liquid mercury, flowing around the larger alien's attempts to grab him. His attacks were precise, targeting pressure points and nerve clusters that most species shared. Within 30 seconds, all 3 Saurian cadets were on the floor, groaning in pain. Young Min stood over them, not even breathing hard. "Next time," he said pleasantly, "maybe ask before you interrupt someone's meal." The cafeteria erupted in shocked whispers. Cadets stared at Young Min with a mixture of fear and admiration. The quiet human who had never stood out before had just taken down 3 opponents without breaking a sweat. Captain Jae-won, the human liaison officer at the academy, received his 5th incident report of the week. The middle-aged officer had served with distinction in the Outer Rim conflicts, but he was starting to feel out of his depth. Each report told the same story. Human cadets were performing far beyond their supposed capabilities. More disturbing, they seemed to be enjoying it. The normal human tendency toward cooperation and compromise was being replaced by something much more aggressive. During weapons training, Yoonji had dismantled a complex alien rifle and reassembled it into a more efficient configuration in less than 2 minutes. When asked how she knew to do that, she had simply shrugged and said it felt natural. In tactical studies, a group of human cadets had developed a battle strategy that impressed even the Saurian instructors. It involved using smaller forces to systematically isolate and destroy larger enemies, turning their strengths against them. "They are thinking like predators," Captain Jae-won wrote in his report to Human Command. "Not just fighters, but hunters. It is as if General Koldar's attack triggered something in their genetic memory." The alien cadets were beginning to notice the change, too. Species that had dismissed humans as weak support personnel were starting to defer to human leadership instinctively. During group projects, alien cadets found themselves naturally following human suggestions, even when logic, said they. General Koldar's massive frame trembled with rage. His yellow eyes burned as he stared down at the small human cadet who dared to question his authority. Around them, the training ground had gone completely silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "Real strength?" the general repeated, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You think you understand strength, little human?" Hyun-woo felt his heart pounding, but he did not step back. Behind him, his squad mates watched in growing alarm. Taemin moved slightly forward, ready to intervene, but Hyun-woo held up a hand to stop him. "I understand that we completed the mission without anyone getting hurt," Hyun-woo said. "I understand that sometimes the smart choice is better than the strong choice." The other cadets began to murmur. Some nodded in agreement, impressed by the human's courage. Others shook their heads, knowing that challenging General Koldar never ended well. "Smart choice," General Koldar spat. He began to pace around Hyun-woo like a predator circling prey. "Let me tell you about smart choices, Cadet. When the Void Hunters attacked the Kepler colonies, did the defenders use smart choices? When the machine war reached Earth's doorstep, did your species survive with clever tricks?" Hyun-woo's jaw tightened. The general was talking about real wars, real deaths. People Hyun-woo had known, places he had lived. "Those were different situations," Hyun-woo replied. "This was a training exercise with specific objectives." "Different?" General Koldar's laugh was like breaking glass. "There is no difference, child. In war, the strong survive and the weak die. That is the only truth that matters." The general stopped directly in front of Hyun-woo, towering over him like a living mountain. His clawed hand pointed at the human's chest. "Your species joined this alliance as refugees," he continued, his voice growing louder. "Earth was burning, your cities were falling, and you came begging for help. We gave you shelter out of charity, not respect." Murmurs rippled through the crowd of watching cadets. Many of them had never heard the full story of humanity's entry into the Galactic Alliance. They knew humans were considered a support species, but they had not known about Earth's desperate situation during the Machine War. Hyunwoo's face remained calm, but his friends could see the tension in his shoulders. Taemin knew that look. His roommate was getting angry, and angry Hyunwoo was unpredictable. "We earned our place in this alliance," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Human engineers helped build half the ships in the fleet. Human doctors saved thousands of lives during the plague years. Human farmers feed entire colonies. Support roles," General Koldar dismissed with a wave of his massive hand. "Important, perhaps, but not leadership. Not command. Not the positions that matter when the shooting starts." He leaned down until his scarred snout was inches from Hyunwoo's face. The human could smell the alien's breath, feel the heat from his scaled body. "You want to know what real strength looks like?" the general whispered. "It looks like this." The backhand came without warning. General Koldar's clawed hand swept across Hyunwoo's face with enough force to lift the human off his feet. The crack echoed across the training ground like a gunshot. Hyunwoo flew backward, tumbling across the dirt before sliding to a stop near his squad mates. Blood ran from his split lip and a gash on his cheek where the general's claws had caught him. The watching cadets gasped in shock. Physical violence against students was strictly forbidden at the academy, regardless of species or rank. General Koldar had just broken one of the most sacred rules of the institution. Boram moved to help Hyunwoo, her forearms reaching down to lift him. But the human waved her away and slowly pushed himself to his feet. Blood dripped from his mouth onto his torn uniform. Donghyun, another human cadet who had been watching from the crowd, stepped forward with his fists clenched. He was bigger than Hyunwoo, with scars on his knuckles from his days as a street fighter on Earth. His face was dark with rage. "You want to hit someone?" Donghyun snarled at the general. "Try me." But Hyunwoo held up a hand, stopping his friend. Slowly, carefully, he wiped the blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. When he looked up at General Koldar, something had changed in his eyes. The fear was gone. The uncertainty was gone. In its place was something cold and calculating, like a computer running through options and scenarios. "I understand now, General," Hyunwoo said quietly, his voice steady despite the blood on his lips. "You wanted to teach me something about strength." General Koldar expected submission, apologies, or at least fear. Instead, he saw something in the human's expression that made his scales prickle with unease. There was no anger in those dark eyes, no hatred. There was something far more disturbing. There was assessment. "You think that was strength?" Hyunwoo continued, still speaking in that calm, quiet voice. "Hitting someone smaller than you? Someone who cannot fight back?" The general's yellow eyes narrowed. "Careful, cadet. Your position here is not as secure as you think." "My position," Hyunwoo repeated, as if tasting the words. He looked around at the watching cadets, many of whom were staring at him with new interest. "You know what I learned today, General? I learned that strength is not about size or claws, or scales." He took a step forward and somehow, despite being half the alien's height, it seemed like a challenge. "Strength is about what you choose to do when you have power," Hyunwoo said. "And what you just showed everyone here is that when you have power, you choose to hurt people who cannot hurt you back." The training ground was so quiet that everyone could hear the wind moving through the academy's buildings. Cadets from dozens of species watched as a small human faced down one of the most feared instructors in the galaxy. General Koldar raised his hand again, claws extended. But this time, Hyunwoo did not flinch. He stood perfectly still, meeting the general's gaze with those cold, calculating eyes. "Go ahead," Hyunwoo said softly. "Show them all what real strength looks like." For a moment, the general hesitated. Something about the human's expression, his complete lack of fear, gave him pause. Then his training and his pride took over. But before he could strike again, a new voice cut across the training ground. General Koldar. Commander Yuki, the Academy's head of student affairs, stood at the edge of the crowd. The elderly Centaurian's forearms were crossed and her expression was thunderous. "Report to my office immediately," she ordered, "and bring the security recording of this incident." General Koldar's hand slowly lowered. He looked around at the watching cadets, at the blood on Hyunwoo's face, at the shocked expressions of his fellow instructors. "This is not over," he growled, at Hyunwoo. The human smiled, and there was something in that smile that made several cadets step backward. "No, General," Hyunwoo agreed. "I do not think it is." As General Koldar stormed away, the crowd began to disperse. But many of the alien cadets lingered, looking at Hyunwoo with expressions he had never seen before. Not pity or sympathy, but something that looked almost like respect. Taemin finally reached his roommate's side along with Dong Hyun and several other human cadets. "Are you insane?" Taemin whispered. "Do you know what you just did?" Hyunwoo touched his split lip gently, examining the blood on his fingers. "I learned something," he said quietly. "What?" Dong Hyun asked, still glaring in the direction the general had gone. Hyunwoo looked around at his friends, at the alien cadets who were still watching him, at the academy that had suddenly become a very different place. "I learned that we have been holding back," he said. "All of us, all humans. We have been trying so hard to fit in, to be accepted, that we forgot what we really are." Boram approached cautiously, her crystal-clear concern obvious in her alien features. "What are you really?" she asked. Hyunwoo's smile widened, and for the first time since arriving at the academy, he felt completely honest. "We are survivors," he said, "and it is time everyone remembered that." Word of the incident spread through the academy faster than wildfire. By evening, every cadet on every floor knew that a human had stood up to General Koldar and lived to tell about it. But more than that, they knew something had changed, not just in Hyunwoo but in all the human cadets. They walked differently now, held their heads higher, met alien gazes without flinching. The academy's delicate balance of power had shifted, and no one knew where it would settle. In his room that night, Hyunwoo stared at his reflection in the mirror. The cuts were already beginning to heal, faster than they should have. His body felt different, more alive, more aware. General Koldar had wanted to teach him about strength, but the lesson he learned was not the one the general intended. The lesson was that some cages are only as strong as the prisoner's willingness to stay inside them, and Hyunwoo was done being caged. The morning sun cast long shadows across the training grounds of Nexus Prime Academy. Hyunwoo adjusted his uniform and checked his equipment one last time. Today was the big test, and he could not afford to mess it up. Around him, cadets from dozens of different worlds prepared for the same exercise. The Centaurians stood nearly 3 meters tall, their forearms moving with perfect coordination. The Saurians, with their thick scales and powerful builds, looked like living tanks. Even the smallest alien species towered over the human cadets. "You nervous?" asked Taemin, Hyunwoo's roommate and best friend at the academy. The other human was shorter but had broader shoulders, and he always seemed to find something to joke about. "A little," Hyunwoo admitted. He watched as Boram, a female Centaurian from his squad, lifted a training weight that would crush most humans. "Look at them. They're all so much stronger than us," Taemin laughed. "That's what makes it fun. We have to be smarter, right?" Hyunwoo nodded. That had been the human way since they joined the Galactic Alliance 5 years ago. They could not match the raw power of other species, but they could think differently. They could find solutions that others missed. The exercise today was called Fortress Rescue. Each squad had to infiltrate a heavily defended base and extract 3 captured allies. Most squads tried the direct approach, overwhelming force, and superior firepower. It worked for species like the Saurians, who could simply punch through walls. But Hyunwoo had studied the fortress layout for weeks. He had found something the others missed. "Squad 7, report to the starting position," announced the training computer. That was them. Hyunwoo's squad consisted of 5 members from different species. Besides himself and Boram, there was Jin-A, a crystalline whose body was made of living crystal that could interface directly with computers. There was also Keltar, a young saurian who was actually pretty friendly, and Vespin, an insect-like, hive mind representative. "Okay, team," Hyunwoo said as they reached their starting point. "Everyone knows the plan?" Boram's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "I still think this is crazy. The simulation shows that Entrance has the heaviest defenses. That's exactly why it will work," Hyunwoo explained. "They expect us to avoid it. Jin-A, can you really shut down their sensors for 30 seconds? The crystal being flickered with internal light. 28 seconds to be precise. But if I'm wrong about the power relay location, you're not wrong, Hyunwoo said with confidence he did not entirely feel. I trust you. The exercise began with a sharp whistle. Around them, other squads charged toward the fortress from different angles. Hyunwoo led his team in the opposite direction. They circled around to the main entrance, which was protected by automated turrets and force fields. Most squads would call this suicide. But Hyunwoo had noticed something during his study of the fortress plans. The main entrance defenses were designed to stop large groups. They would have trouble targeting a single small infiltrator. "Jin-A, now," he whispered. The crystalline pressed her hand against a maintenance panel. Light flowed from her body into the fortress systems. For exactly 28 seconds, all the sensors around the main entrance went dark. Hyunwoo ran. He was small and fast, and he knew exactly where to go. While the sensors were down, he planted 3 small devices that Taemin had helped him build from spare parts. They were not weapons. They were decoys. When the sensors came back online, they would detect massive energy signatures in 3 different locations inside the fortress. The automated defenses would think a large force had somehow gotten inside. They would turn inward to deal with the threat. Phase 2, Hyunwoo called into his comm. Now came the dangerous part. While the defenses were confused by the fake signals, his squad charged through the temporarily weakened perimeter. Boram used her strength to tear through the outer fence. Keltar's natural armor protected him from the few shots that got through. Vespin's multiple bodies allowed him to be in several places at once. They reached the fortress, just as other squads were beginning their assaults on the side entrances. But those entrances were now heavily defended, because the fortress computer thought the main threat was already inside. The captured allies were actually training androids placed in a central holding area. Getting to them required passing through 3 security checkpoints and a maze of corridors filled with training bots set to stun. This was where most squads got stuck. The direct approach meant fighting through dozens of defenders. Even the strongest species could not handle those odds, but Hyunwoo had studied the fortress layout. He knew there was a maintenance tunnel that ran directly under the holding area. It was too narrow for most species to use, but a human could fit. "I'm going alone from here," he told his squad. "Give me 15 minutes, then cause as much noise as possible near the east wall." Boram grabbed his arm with one of her 4 hands. "This is too dangerous. We should stick together." "Trust me," Hyunwoo said. "This will work." He dropped into the maintenance tunnel through a hidden access panel that Jin-A had unlocked. The space was cramped and dark, filled with pipes and electrical conduits. A saurian would never fit. Even most humans would find it uncomfortable. But Hyunwoo had grown up in the crowded cities of Earth. Small spaces did not bother him. He crawled through the darkness, counting turns and measuring distances. The fortress computers had not been programmed to expect an attack from below. Above him, he could hear the sounds of battle as other squads fought their way through the corridors. His own squad was creating a distraction near the east wall, drawing defenders away from the central area. When he reached the holding area, Hyunwoo carefully removed a floor panel. The 3 android prisoners were right there, unguarded because all the security was focused on the main entrances. "Come with me if you want to live," he whispered to the androids using an old Earth movie reference that made him smile. Getting back was harder because he had to guide the androids through the narrow tunnel. But the fortress defenses were still focused on the other squads. By the time anyone realized what had happened, Hyunwoo and the rescued prisoners were already outside the perimeter. The exercise ended with a loud horn. Squad 7 had completed the mission in record time with 0 casualties. Other squads stared at them in confusion and amazement. The Saurian cadets looked especially puzzled. They had used overwhelming force and taken heavy simulated casualties. How had the humans and their mixed squad succeeded so easily? General Koldar stomped onto the training ground, his massive frame casting a shadow over the assembled cadets. The Saurian general was known throughout the academy for his harsh training methods and his belief that only the strongest species deserved leadership roles. His yellow eyes fixed on Hyunwoo's squad with obvious displeasure. "Explain," he growled, his voice like grinding stone. Hyunwoo stepped forward. He was barely half the general's height, but he stood straight and met the alien's gaze. "Sir, we analyzed the fortress defenses and found a weakness in their sensor grid. By creating false readings and using alternative entry points, we were able to complete the mission with minimal engagement." "Trickery," General Koldar spat. "Cowardice. You avoided honorable combat." "We completed the objective, sir," Hyunwoo replied calmly. "The mission was to rescue the prisoners, not to fight every defender in the fortress." The general's scales rippled with anger. Around them, other cadets watched in tense silence. Arguments with General Koldar rarely ended well for anyone. "In real combat," the general snarled, "your clever tricks will fail. Only strength matters. Only power survives." Hyunwoo felt his squad mates shifting nervously behind him. Bo-Ram's hand moved toward her weapon. Jin-A's crystal body dimmed with worry. Even Taemin, usually quick with a joke, remained silent. But Hyunwoo did not back down. Something inside him, something that had been growing stronger during his time at the academy, pushed him to stand his ground. "With respect, General," he said, his voice steady despite the danger. "Our method saved lives, both our own and our enemies. Isn't that what real strength looks like?" The training ground fell completely silent. No cadet had ever challenged General Koldar's philosophy so directly. The massive Saurian's eyes blazed with fury, and his clawed hands clenched into fists. The storm was about to break, and Hyunwoo stood directly in its path,